Welcome to Hudco Radio. I'm Jim Kennelly. Hudson County Executive Craig Guy's groundbreaking affordable housing initiative offers an exciting new approach to building affordable housing units in our community. Here to talk about it is Bill Mazzucatis, chairman of the County Executive's Affordable Housing Task Force, and Joe Wax, senior advisor to the county executive. Both men are attorneys with extensive public service backgrounds who share Craig Guy's belief that the county government has a valuable role to play in helping expand the amount of quality, permanently affordable housing available to local residents. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. Great to be here.
Joe, great to have you. Joe, let's start with you. No Hudson County government administration has ever publicly committed to directly increasing the supply of affordable housing units until this one did in 2024. I wonder if you could describe sort of the discussions you had with the county executive as he entered office and kind of what led to that commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think your question is correct that Hudson County has never done anything like this, and I'd venture to say that not many counties, period, have done this. But going back a couple of years, when Craig was running for election, and his campaign was really based on affordability, of issues around affordability, food insecurity, things like that. And doesn't anybody who lives around here knows how expensive it is to live. There's a great deal of building going on over the years here in Jersey City, but a lot of it is focused towards a higher market rate. So there's really a dearth of what you would call affordable housing here in Hudson County generally, and here in Jersey City specifically. So he committed himself to doing everything he could do, that is county executive guy, to increase the amount of affordable housing here in the county. And one of the things that we batted around and we're pursuing now, and Bill can certainly talk a lot about it, is building on county property. They don't really make new land around here, and land is very valuable, as you know. And so one of the great things that we have is some available land. We'll talk specifically, I'm sure, about each specific plot that we have, each plot of land. But one that we're looking at currently, and I won't get too much into it, is down at County Plaza. It's parking lots. And so that was kind of the genesis of the conversation. And then once we got into office, it was kind of been full steam ahead with a county executive guy's creation of the Affordable Housing Task Force. So that's pretty much where we're at, and we're excited about it. We're moving, and thanks a lot to Bill Mazzucatis, who's sitting here to my right. We're making it happen. So that's where we're at.
It also, and not to take you too far afield on this, Joe, but it seems, I think it's an interesting choice that he picked you as somebody. You're kind of I don't want to mischaracterize you, but you're kind of a throwback liberal. You believe in a muscular government that gets things done for people. I know that's the case. Back to your days in Bayonne. It seems as though whether it's insecurity, where we're building pantries, whether it's housing, where we're building or we're trying to build housing, this is a little bit different. You and I both served in Tom DeGius's administration. A lot got done in those years, but this is a little bit different. It's sort of as if you, and I'm sure obviously, the county executive, as he describes it, want to put bricks and mortar behind promises related to kind of social justice. Would that be a fair characterization of sort of what your approach has been from a policy perspective?
I mean, I won't get into my resume, but I've been working in government for 30 years, and was around it my whole life. My parents were very involved in local politics where I grew up. And I just always had a very strong belief that we have a duty. We have a duty generally as human beings to take care of each other. But I've chosen this profession because I really believe in what we're doing. I'm a true believer in government, and where we can, we have a responsibility to take care of taxpayers and those less fortunate than us. And I think this goes right along with that. Yep, we're building a food pantry in the city of Bayonne. And I think this goes along with what I believe in, and more importantly, what the county executive believes. is the role of government, and so we are going to do everything we can to make this happen.
Well, Bill, let's that kind of turns that to you. You serve not only as the chairperson of the county executives affordable housing task force, but you're the general counsel for the HCIA, which is spearheading the independent county agency that's spearheading this with its bonding authority and other kind of abilities to kind of impact society. So when the county executive and Joe are talking about how bricks and mortar can be, can kind of be built beneath the promises of, kind of making a difference in terms of the lives of folks who maybe need help. You're the one who's going to actually have to provide the bricks and mortar with this effort. And I wonder if we could just start off by kind of talking about how you got involved with this and sort of what the first very earliest steps were, so to speak, in terms of getting it off the ground. I mean, there'd never been a housing task force, affordable housing task force before at the county level. And I suppose you were just sort of handed a clean sheet of paper to kind of see what thought was best. Talk a little bit about kind of those early days and kind of where we are today.
Sure. I think that there was more than a blank sheet of paper. There had been the county executive had thought about several different sites where he identified respective locations to develop affordable housing because there are swaths of land that were just apparently manifestly not being utilized for the highest and best use, to say the least, such as the parking lots at County Plaza that my friend Joe Wax just talked about. So, the first thing we did was to take a look at several different locations. There's almost 13 acres, about a dozen plus acres at County Plaza. There's a surface parking lot uh, across the street from the Brennan Courthouse on Newark and Baldwin Avenue. There's the old Hoboken Avenue, New Jersey C County Garage. And then there's some other parking lots in Bergen Square behind the Hudson County Improvement Authority's offices there. So we identified those locations and we started to take a look at uh, a lot of different issues and came up with sort of a white paper about how can we approach this. We looked at what the underlying zoning is, what's the zoning like in the area, what's the market like for real estate in the area. Um, what are some of the financing opportunities that we could potentially leverage? What are the environmental issues that may be uh, surrounding a given area? What's the affordability situation in Hudson County and Jersey City with regard to the need?
Yeah, let's stop there for just 1 second because I want to get into the need a little bit because I know I've seen you do some of these community presentations where you talk about that, and maybe that's a good thing to kind of set the table. But before we do, I just want to not to put too fine a point on it. One big step that isn't going to be something we're going to have to deal with is the fact that we're not going to be looking to purchase property. We're not going to be looking to, try to take something by eminent domain. Often that can be a real struggle. Instead, everything we're talking about here, those 13 acres, are already in the hands of county government. So that first part of it is out of the way. And right?
Both sites are a little different. So
Right.
County Plaza is one where there's no assemblage of not county owned land,
Right.
HCA owned land needed. Some of the other parcels, like Hoboken Avenue Garage site, you probably need to work with either the adjoining parcel on either adjoining parcel on either side to make them work. But look, that is having land and leveraging it to do something positive with it is what this is really is the fundamental thrust behind this effort. So when you look at like the surface parking lots at County Plaza, and we recognize that the County Plaza offices, which Hudson County underneath the leadership of County Executive DeGise said, here's an old headquarters of a pharmaceutical company that's leaving town. I'm going to acquire that, renovate it, rehabilitate it, convert it into county offices. So we have approximately 1,000 employees down there, and they really provide some incredibly important services. Some of the most important services, from managing our elections with the Board of Elections to doing intake for social services like Medicaid. So you really have important services. Those aren't going anywhere. And those employees, a lot of them, there are public buses that go there, but a lot of them are drive and park. But we can accommodate that parking at a fraction of the space that's utilized right now, and far more useful types of parking that are more environmentally friendly, for example, and take up a fraction of the land, and also, a part of a building that contains housing.
So kind of the shorthand would be essentially no one's losing parking at, say, County Plaza where the workers are. It's that you're going to essentially probably build garages and things like that that allow for reshape the parking so that that is, that allows you to go ahead and on top build the developments. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's basically the idea. Look at the surface parking lots are very bad because
Yeah.
multiple reasons. One, they create flooding. So we anticipate that some of the flooding that exists in the so-called Colony neighborhood to the east of County Plaza, which I just found out the other day, thanks to Norman Guerra, was named after different athletic facilities.
Hmm.
They're called the old colonial pool and baseball fields.
I wasn't
Aware of that. But you can bring about the parking in a vertical building on a fraction of the space, uh, alleviate the flooding that gets caused by surface parking, and then you also have a lot of heat island effect. With hot temperatures, having a asphalt parking lot, all that does is increase the temperatures inside of an urban area. So it's really just a bad use, and a lot of those things are going to be addressed through the green infrastructure that will come with these buildings. So we're talking about accommodating we did a lot of work on the parking to figure out how we can use shared parking between residents that are going to be moving in, some of the retail space that we're looking to do there, as well as the workers and the visitors that go to County Plaza. So, one thing about this effort is I'm lucky enough to work not only with Joe, who they talked about his long history in government from being working as an appointments director to Governor Cody, the director for Senator Lautenberg, who was a close assistant to Speaker Joe Doria, worked for the city of Bayonne, and on and on.
Thanks.
Congressman Pascal.
Hey, you're ruining my Joe Wax profile podcast. You just killed my Joe Wax profile podcast. Right.
This people want to tune in now.
Right.
But we have a lot of great
Right.
people that we're working with.
Sure.
People that are experts in finance, people that are experts in planning, people that are experts in architecture, people that are experts in parking. So, and look, we don't, Joe, when we talk about these things, we're trying to figure out the best way forward. I tell people, we're not here to like make each other feel good. We got to challenge each other. So we're frequently like vigorously debating and saying,
Right.
what's the right thing to do here? Because
Well, I don't want to cut you off, but you're right. You want to do the very best. We're going to talk more about the kind of the team that you've assembled, but I want to get to that need so we don't pass that over.
Sure.
One of the things that you've done a great job of, I thought, when you're in these community meetings, is talking a little bit about the shape of the need, the real need in Hudson County for more affordable units. Can you talk? I'm not. I don't want to put you on the spot because, I know you usually work from a script and all, but I'm sure just broadly talk a little bit about. What is the challenge now in terms of affordable units in Hudson County available to the public?
well, I don't work from a script. I work from a PowerPoint. So a little bit slightly different. The county hasn't got me a teleprompter. But I kid. Look, the county's at over 40% of the people approaching 50 that are what's known as cost burden, where they're spending over 30% of their gross income on housing costs, and a lot of them are spending even more than that. You have a county that has all four of these sites, by coincidence, happen to be in Jersey City. As hopefully this initiative grows roots and becomes successful and it sort of reproduces itself, and we'll talk about that. I'm sure we'll expand beyond, but Jersey City has, and I say some ways it's been a victim of its own success. With a lot of great things have happened in Jersey City. People want to live here. People want to live in cities again. It's not a phenomenon that's unique to Hoboken or Jersey City. You can see it in Nashville, Tennessee, Huntsville, Alabama, Boston. That's true. The whole thing of fleeing the cities has been reversed. That people are flocking to cities now, so it's become very desirable. We've drawn a lot of wealthy people, and it's raised the cost of housing quite a bit. In Hudson County and Jersey City has this interesting dichotomy where you have 20% of the population that are doing quite well, that are making north of a couple $100,000 a year, and then you have 20% of the population that are struggling in poverty. That are working, yet they're making like less than $40,000, but they're doing a lot of important jobs, and it's not really a good functioning society where you have people that you're saying, we need you to be a nursing assistant, we need you to do all these important jobs. Some of them are, I mentioned is nursing assistant people are taking care of our loved ones, people that are cleaning our buildings. Sometimes, beginning police officers. There's so many teachers, so many important jobs that through our system, people aren't being compensated a lot of money, but they have to live somewhere. And the private market is not providing that. So we said, hey, what can we do to address this issue? I mean, we need more housing in general. Although we've had a lot of building, we work closely with the Regional Plan Association, which has been a supporter of ours, and they estimate that Jersey City's had a building boom. There's still going to be a shortage of housing if we don't build more. But we also need some income restricted housing too. So our approach is to say, let's figure out these locations. What can we do to build housing that has a lot of different elements to it, which we can talk about, because we want this to be beautiful, successful housing where people, and some of the things we looked at is we studied the past.
Yeah.
Jersey City, Hudson County, to make sure we're not replicating some mistakes and errors from the past.
Well, like, I mean, you could talk a little probably about the history of what people, I hate to say, kind of pejoratively called things like the projects.
Yeah.
It's like Montgomery Gardens or something. You want to talk about that whole video?
Well, yeah, I mean, part of Bill's presentation, which is one of my favorite parts of the presentation, is a little video of Montgomery Gardens, which is over on Montgomery Street, near to the site where on Cornelison, where we're going to be building, taking that being imploded. And I think the point
Knocked down because it just wasn't a successful
Yeah,
experiment. 30 years later, it was just pooling poverty, I guess.
siloing people,
Yeah.
in one place, and it's not this is not to besmirch any people whatsoever, but I mean, people who live in poverty tend to have more needs in terms of social services, medical, what have you. So I think the idea, and I think this is really important, and Bill can really expound on this, is the point of what we're trying to do is it's called social housing, and it's a mix of incomes. It's all kinds of people living together, rather than having just super rich people living in one place or super poor people living in one place. The idea is to have all kinds of people living in a beautiful place that's really going to become a neighborhood into in and of itself. And I think that's just a really important aspect of this.
I'm sorry. So to make people clear for people, the county, while it's going to take its land and it's going to get involved in affordable housing, it's not going to build 100% affordable units and maybe again silo people all who are in need of affordable housing. Instead, this is going to be, I assume, kind of a market rate with affordable as a component of the entire project, so that you have a mixed set of folks who are in these properties. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's gonna be
Is that the goal, at least?
the goal and the plan is for mixed income at all the different sites, and there may be different models of ownership as we look at the different sites, depending upon certain unique specifics to it. But the first one we are going to see go vertical and see a ground breaking is at the County Plaza site, which is the biggest site. It's the site we don't need to assemble any land, and that is one where we're pursuing a social housing model. And one of the things we've looked at is not only what didn't work, we've looked at things that what has worked in certain areas. And the mixed income component of this is important for, I would say, probably 4 different reasons. One is it's segregating people of extreme poverty into one building. It's worked for a lot of reasons. One of which is Joe referenced that people who are struggling with poverty tend to have other socioeconomic problems, and having one building where everyone has that type of an income profile hasn't been successful in the past. 2, you almost all models generate some income out of the rents that come from the people that live there, and if every single rent is low rent, you tend to have an ability to upkeep the buildings. That's one of the reasons why Mitchell Lama in New York City was in many ways were successful, because it brought a lot of and it was different than public housing. It was intended to sort of provide housing for the missing middle, but the suppressed rents across the board there led to not having good upkeep. Within 10 years, the program was in disarray. Uh, you have so when you have here, we're definitely going to be getting subsidies, but at the same time, we're going to be incurring some debt that we want to pay off over time, and having market rate incomes involved, will enable the county to generate more revenue and pay off the debt services. Will also enable us to have good upkeep, and that's important. We're not going to run these places because we don't have that type of resources and divisions and to do it. But like many developers in Hudson County, who once they build a building, they don't manage them. They hire a company that does it. We'll be doing that as well. So another thing is that when you have mixed income, and you have people with spending power, you tend to draw in better amenities. There tends to be greater safety, and so there's a lot of different benefits, and I think people can benefit from living in a diverse atmosphere like that, and there are studies that show that if you put a certain amount of lower income families in with upper income families, you see better outcomes in education and things like that. We hope would come from this. So, yeah, we're looking at 30% income capped, rent capped housing that goes from the spectrum of middle class, if you would, to very low income across the board, at different numbers. We'll have a mixture in that 30% of income capped housing. And like you said, or somebody said, one of the things that were really important to us is doing, we have 30% it forever, permanent.
Right.
A lot of affordable housing.
Deed restricted,
It's going to be deed
restricted forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Because a lot of the times it seems like a long time, 30 years, but go talk to Doris Toon from who does affordable housing for Hudson County, and half the time they're dealing with houses that are coming offline.
Right.
So people are losing that affordable housing. So yeah.
It would seem, I know there's been a lot of, and you'll get into this probably as we go, but I've heard, kind of targets all built out. We could be looking at maybe as many total units of maybe as many as 2,000 units, which means the potential there is for 5, 6, maybe even 700 units if we get 30%, depending on how many is the eventual build out of affordable units. That's be the hope. That's so hundreds of units because one of the things people who are advocates for this or, will talk about is, you get one building built, you get 17 units or something like that. Here,
Right.
this broad initiative, you've got a real chance to be in the hundreds of units if you do
That's
this.
Plaza alone, we're
Yeah.
talking about a couple hundred, and,
Yeah.
and I try not to refer to them as units.
Or homes, whatever whatever.
No, I mean,
No, I agree.
no, that doesn't mean to be critical of you.
No.
That's real estate speak, but when you really think about it, it's homes.
It's homes,
right?
absolutely.
It's like I think about it like every family that is going to be able to find a place to live, and we hope is going to be a really great, beautiful new neighborhood with wonderful amenities and open space and environmentally sound. That's going to make a difference in these people's lives. That's going to be, because they're going to have a home to live in.
Well, one thing that I think it may be worth bringing up here is you engaged a terrific consultant, architectural firm, design firm, Studio V.
Yes.
And, they have been terrific at these community events that all of us have attended. What if you talk a little bit how you connected with them, their background, what they brought to the table, and the kind of the vision that they expressed to you as you've been working through the beginnings of this process?
Sure. Well, it goes back to sort of my history first working for the city of Jersey City. And I knew that like this area, County Plaza, is going to need a new zoning regime, right? Because right now those 13 acres are governed by a mishmash of different antiquated zoning, so from industrial to 1 and 2 family to a redevelopment plan that was passed in 1976. We also knew we would want to leverage the benefits and powers of New Jersey's redevelopment laws that allow things like, eminent domain and potentially tax abatements and what have you. And also because, one of the reasons why the HA is spearheading this is because the law that creates improvement authorities gives the HA powers in the housing field, but those laws are structured in the way that you're supposed to work together with the city through the redevelopment power. So we needed to come up with a new plan for this. And I know that in Jersey City, even though we had some great planners in house, when there was moments in time where like Bob Cotter said, we're going to create a new plan for Liberty Harbor. He went and got a great planner, this guy Duwani. Or we're going to create Bayfront. He went and got a great planner, Tony Nellison from Rutgers University. And I had worked with Jay Valgora before, and I thought
He is the principal of Studio V.
he's the principal of Studio V, and uh, I worked with him in the private sector, and I like the creativity. I like the way he looks to the surrounding community to try to build off of that and really provide what's missing, but at the same time, cash in on the assets of the surrounding community. Sometimes even going back to the history of what was there, to regenerate it in a sense if there's something lost. And also brought to that team the former principal planner of Jersey City, Jeff Wenger, who's almost worked for 2 decades. So I think and they have a lot of great talent on there. That team from people that do renderings and design. And Jay is also great with seeing in the community. And so he's a little bit more tolerant of people than me sometimes. But he's wonderful and he's open to suggestions and he's working with so many great people. We have people who've done the HIA, which is spearheading this. And can I just talk for a second about
Absolutely.
What we're going to do here? So we came up with this. We took a 10,000-foot picture and said, what's what all those things for white paper. And then we said, now we got to come up with a new master plan, redevelopment plan. We already had an initial guide, concept working with an architect and an engineer about what can we build there. What's that mean? That means what's the right size and scope of the buildings? What's the market going to allow? And we came up with an initial concept, and then Jay and Studio V, put more meat on the bones, and he's been doing that with community input. And he's developed a master plan for a new community down there, with over an acre of open space. And we're putting together now a legal document called a redevelopment plan that has to be passed by the city council and the planning board. And then ultimately, we're going to come up with the ability to put out type of a bid specification to go and bring in builders to build these buildings. And so, we're still in the development of the master plan, redevelopment plan. It's in the works there. We're showing it to people. We're at the process point right now of working with the city. But hopefully, the HIA, so talk about who's done this type of a thing before, and not too many people really have. Montgomery County, Maryland has done something somewhat similar, where they have gotten some great results, and they've gotten lauded for it. That seemingly deservedly so. They're doing 30% income restricted in housing that is indecipherable from the so-called luxury apartments that are popping up in that suburban.
Montgomery County is one of the richest counties in America, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, a lot of this social housing concept has its birth from 100 years ago in Vienna, Austria. And I was lucky enough to go in there and take and meet with some of the city officials. I went there and saw it, and they've been doing this for 100 years. It's evolved over time, some of their concepts, and ours is not going to be exactly the same, but we think we can do something even better than these other places, and hopefully create a model.
Well, that's one thing that Jay seemed to bring to the table with Studio V was that he was talking about in these community meetings about where he had seen something in Paris or something in a small neighborhood or something like that he thought would be applicable to some small area of the design concepts that he came up with. And that is what's been very impressive. You're really looking at the best of what you find around the country and even, around the world, which is pretty terrific. Now, you've been having a community meeting process where you essentially, do that PowerPoint you talked about to present. I wonder, what has that process been like? Both of you have taken part. What has that process been like? Joe, it's been pretty clear that the county executive, he wanted action but he also wanted to make sure that people knew that we were, especially in the most directly affected neighborhoods here in central Jersey City, that they were listened to. So what's that? So talk a little bit about what that process has been like. I know his mandate for you was that there should be community meetings, that the designer, Studio V, should be present, that there should be interaction. I know that in those meetings that there's opportunities for folks not only ask questions, but then afterward to engage. Talk a little bit about what these have been like.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Public input is really critical to everything we do here in the county. We're not here to talk down to people. We're here to listen to people and see what their needs are, and then see how we can best meet those needs. And so, yeah, the county executive gave us a mandate to, yes, we want to do this, but we want to hear what people have to say. And I have to say that Jay Valgora has got a great personality. He's disarming, but I don't mean it like I mean that in a very positive way. He knows how to talk to people. He's not full of gibberish or lingo that people don't understand. And he stands there and listens to people, and then gives them, and like you said, he gives them an opportunity to speak. But also we bring plans with us and maps, and people can take a sticky note and put it on there, and write down like what their ideas are. And we've had, I don't know, Bill, three or four public meetings, Jim.
Yeah, and they're all in this central zone,
Yeah.
central area. And one of the things I suppose is very sensitive and you have to consider is there are sort of established neighborhoods with a kind of fabric in some of these areas that you're looking to build nearby. And, they have their strong opinions, but this is giving them a chance to really kind of hash
Yeah.
it out, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've had meetings with the General Square Neighborhood Association, the Hilltop Neighborhood Association, Bergen Point, or Bergen Square.
We invited people to come from
The Beacon?
Melanie and the Beacon to one of our meetings, and we're going to do one more big meeting where we talk about, hey, this is where we are, close to finish. There are a few things we do want some important feedback on. So, for example, we're going to be doing what are the things I like about the social housing in Vienna. One thing in particular I'll talk about now is additional social services or social benefits that arise out of the structures that they build. Clearly there's open space and courtyards that they do, and we're going to have that. But frequently they have kindergartens and or daycare, and we're going to have some community space, and we're thinking about what are the types of things we're going to provide there. There's a strong chance we'll have like a supermarket, for example. Is there the possibility of recreational type of facilities? So we're pretty excited about that and getting more community feedback. We've gotten a lot in that regard. And the one thing I want to say about the HA is, so we're doing this thing that's kind of out of the box, which is local government building housing, and
On their land, but market rate in part and privately operated by professionals who know to make sure that the system works.
Exactly, without a doubt. But one thing is, we haven't built housing the HA, but the HA has built some incredible structures pursuant to this design, build, procurement process, which we're following here, where ultimately someone will come up with 30% of the design drawings, a concept, what it's going to be like, and then a builder and architect will come in and submit proposals, including cost, and we'll select one of them to build it out. But using that type of procurement strategy, the HCA has developed, for example, the new Hudson County Courthouse.
Right.
Went to the ribbon cutting there, which was built on time, on budget, and it's probably the most important public building that was built in New Jersey since COVID. We have the Hudson County Schools of Technology in Secaucus is just another example, which is one of the most phenomenal schools I've ever stepped foot in, and again, built on time, on budget. So we have great taskmasters there, like Norman Ware, who've been working on this stuff. Mike O'Connor have been doing this stuff for years and years and years, and they really take pride in this. And they're just some of the examples of the team that we're all working on this together.
Well, the thing, just for listeners, counties have improvement authorities, which have unique bonding authority. But with your point is well taken, that not only does our ACA have the bonding chops to get the best rates for what it needs, but it also has a fairly significant history over the last, say, 15 to 20, really in this century, of building significant projects. I can think of things like the 14th Street Viaduct and other kinds of projects. Yeah, Skyway Golf Course. So there's a history there of bringing to bear significant infrastructure projects.
Yeah.
And the hope is this is kind of a living one. Joe, I wanted to quickly touch on this point that that Bill raised about the idea that in the Vienna model, that you could have kind of social service related things. And I wondered, you deal with all facets of county government. We deal with a lot of issues in county government. It seems almost as if county government is uniquely poised as the owner of this property to maybe be the perfect kind of intermediary between people who need services, because we provide them, we connect people with them. Talk a little about that if you could.
Well, I mean, I don't want to make this an advert for county government,
But yeah,
but it really, I call it the redheaded stepchild of governments because it really doesn't get the respect
right.
that it should get. But in reality, what we do is we really do the things that no one else wants to do. We run the jails. We run the court system. We administer Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security. We run the elections. We educate people who might not get a high quality education otherwise at Hudson County Community College. So we really, it's like soup to nuts of what we do. And it really does, you're right, it does fit in perfectly with our mission of providing services and providing them where the people are. I've worked on in a former life or a former job on types of on tax tax credit projects with the New Jersey Housing Mortgage Finance Agency, and part of when they funded these projects, and these were lower income properties, but the requirement was that they had to offer services with the when they were giving these tax breaks, the builder had to commit to providing services. And I think it's a model like not for only that type of project, but for this as well. I mean, they call it wraparound services.
Yeah.
I think when you can have like one-stop shopping like that, so to speak, it really benefits. It really gives benefits to people that they might not, might be harder for them to get.
Well, it seems as though county government, which does things like job training, education, social services, you think about those kinds of things, we are poised to be able to make those connections for folks who are maybe part of eventually some of these developments.
Absolutely.
So that
No,
would seem to be the case.
Let's not forget
Makes
parks.
sense.
They have some of the greatest parks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have
Parks there.
But and that's the other thing too, is if there is going to be park space if nothing else, and that's the hope, and that's the expectation, I should say. We also have that kind of in our portfolio of stuff we do. Bill, let's talk a little bit about kind of how this proceeds. You've talked about the fact that a lot of what you're dealing with in terms of the current zoning and all, and so maybe give people kind of a sense of the, say, regulatory timeline. You're dealing with, you've got to get approvals from Jersey City. You're going to have to work with them and stuff like that. How long out is it a process to develop this in a fashion legally so that you can proceed with construction? What's that timeline? I'm sure it's not perfectly locked down yet, but give people a sense of, is this something that's going to take 5-10 years because it's a lot of regulation involved, or something shorter? What is your estimate for that?
Sure. Well, we sit here today on August 12th, and we had a really good meeting with the city of Jersey City this week. We anticipate that the next regulatory / legal step will be accomplished in the first week or second week of September 8th or 9th.
What is that?
So that's going to be the planning board will take
Jersey City Planning Board.
Jersey City Planning Board on our redevelopment study. So in order to leverage the benefits and powers of redevelopment plans and redevelopment laws, you have to basically say that the area meets the criteria, sort of negative criteria of an area that needs redevelopment. And so we have a draft of that we'll be submitting to the city for their consideration.
The old term used to be blighting an area.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, it's become more euphemistic.
No, but
blight is still the word that's
It's-
located in the Jersey Constitution, which gives local governments the ability to do this stuff. And now the redevelopment plan is under draft, and late September we'll go to the first meeting of the city council. We'll work with the planning board, and then by the end of October, our hope is that the regulatory framework will be provided. In other words, the laws will have been passed to enable us to build the types of buildings we want to build. Probably around the same time, we're looking to start that process of getting bid specifications put together. And it's not exactly bidding and it's not exactly specifications, but the design build drawings put together so that we can engage in the public procurement to bring in builders to submit proposals along with architects to actually build out the building. We have to pay for it though. So
Yeah, well, so the point is that regulatory.
moving on.
Yeah.
Some of it's going to be
I want to talk about the financing stuff, Dodge and things like that. We can talk about in a sec, but
Sure.
but just to make sure people understand. So the point is that you've engaged the community, kind of hearing what they want to do. You've now kind of done the important work of a regulatory assembly, getting this right so that it can be built upon. You're beginning to take these steps towards, finding the folks who might be able to construct it.
yeah.
And then the question always comes, how do we pay for it? And that's where we are now. So it's a fairly short timeline. You're in 2028, there won't be more regulations, there won't be more meetings in terms of, is this something you can build on? You'll be set. You'll be in
2027, we want to start building.
that's exactly. So this is
27.
that right. So in other words, we're talking about so for folks who wonder if we're talking about something that's way out in the future, no. We're talking about an initiative that's going to be underway, we hope, next year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about a little bit about how this gets paid for. There's a lot of different kind of options out there. I'm sure they're still being studied, and you're kind of working out how it's going to work. But give us a sense from everything from the various kinds of governmental programs to private foundations that you've dealt with, things like that. Where is that going to kind of come from? Where's that going to come from?
Yeah. So ultimately, we're going to be able to tap into a couple different sources of money that will provide the financial wherewithal to actually build the buildings. Right now, it's not inexpensive. What we're doing, whether it's all the soft costs associated with the professionals, whether it's Studio V or whatever, to move forward at this point in time. But kind of pales in comparison to when we really, start laying out the bricks and
Yeah.
and digging the dirt, putting the steel and putting up the windows and stuff. We're talking about an endeavor that's going to have an upfront cost of hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, unlike other types of public buildings, some of the ones I referenced today, whether it's the courthouse or the schools, those projects, schools, courthouses, they don't bring back any revenue once they're built. In fact, they I don't want to sound like negative. They extract more money because you have to, put teachers in there. You have to clean up the school, so they cost money. But here we will be getting money back in the form of rents. And whatever, so part of the financial scheme will include bonding. And Hudson County, thanks to its good guidance over the last couple of decades,
Right.
enjoys a very good bond rating. And so we'll be able to borrow. So every builder that builds in the private sector, is going out and borrowing money from banks. So it's very similar to that. The big difference is that we're going to have a better rate than even the best developer.
Right, because as a government entity, we're not going anywhere.
Right.
We have credit of their municipalities that are our taxpayers essentially. Right.
Of our county, and so some of that will be bonded for. And our goal is that you'll get that money up front, and then you got to pay it over time. And ultimately, we're going to start getting in rents to pay off the debt service. The goal, the hope is we'll generate enough revenue to pay off the debt service and then some. So, but it's a costly endeavor for a couple different reasons, and it's not easy to make those numbers match. One is 30% income rent restricted.
Right.
So we're not going to be getting the market rate rents of
100%.
on all the units, but 70% will help hit that. We hope that we will be able to leverage other types of subsidy from the federal and the state government, and those are things we're actively working on making happen. especially for these first ones that we're looking to do. There's 4 different projects. Your county plaza we're really focused on, 'cause that's going to be the one that goes first. So I feel confident because hopelessly optimistic that we will get some substantial assistance from the state and federal governments. For example, home funds, which the county has a direct line into. We should be able to.
That's a federal program.
It's a federal program administered like so many other
Right.
programs by the that Joe referenced before, like Medicaid and stuff, by the county. So we think we meet the criteria.
Home essentially was a 90s Clinton agenda thing where the idea was to get away from building these giant blocks of housing, but rather invest in the community to kind of find, better ways to deliver affordable housing. Is that the idea?
More privately structured.
Private, just right.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and look, we can leverage them, leverage those funds. They as long as you have 20% affordable housing, you should be able to leverage those. You'll be able to apply. Joe worked on it for local elected officials like Congressman Menendez to try and get money out of the federal government. So we're working on a few different things. And you mentioned the Dodge Foundation. The Dodge Foundation gave us a very low interest loan to pay for some of the seed money that's required, before we can.
Yeah, you have consultants and all the rest. And that was like $500,000. How much was that?
That was the $500,000.
Yeah. Which we earned by their belief in what you were trying to do.
Exactly.
Well, that's nice. Now, one thing I heard there, if I'm not mistaken, in your wildly optimistic phase, is that in time, at least in theory, if things went well with these projects, and over time we were making the bond payments, and maybe over time the market rate continued to grow in terms of its the amount of income stream, that might eventually maybe become something of a pool or a fund to build additional affordable housing. I don't want to commit you to it or the county executive, but am I right? Is that's sort of the idea that if over time your market rate, once you get past those bonds for construction over the years, you may potentially have that as a source. These house for building some new ones. That would be something that would be great, as something like that. Yeah, please, Joe, jump.
Yeah, what Bill says is entirely correct. There's a lot of different places where like we're turning over every stone. And he mentioned Congressman Menendez, and we did put in a appropriation request with his office, with the congressman, to cover some of these soft costs, and also with Senator Kim. Senator Kim on the Senate side, Congressman Menendez on the House side, which is great. And I guess, not I guess, but I just every person or group that we've shown this to has been really impressed. The senator's office, the congressman's office. We've talked to housing folks in Governor Sherrill's administration. No commitments yet, but we had a very positive meeting down in Trentonville and myself. And yeah, I mean, people like what we're doing. It's I hate using this out of the box term, but it's a little out of the box. And it's people are impressed that county government is trying to do something like this.
Well, it does seem like we're uniquely poised to do it. It only really took the will for you to kind of sit with the county executive at the start of the administration and say, let's have the will to do this, because you were armed, as Bill said, with an improvement authority that had a long history of being good at building big projects and seeing them to the finish. There's this terrific opportunity with the market we're in, where the market's exploding in terms of it being a really strong real estate market. So it just took the willingness to, I guess, to want to make it happen.
Absolutely. And I do actually want to say something about the guy sitting next to me to my right, Bill Matsakudis, who I won't recite off his resume, but he has worked in this space for a long time, and he was corporation counsel for the city of Jersey City and one of Mayor Healy's close aides and confidants. And Bill is a thinker, and he not only thinker, but he knows how to put stuff in action. And I always sometimes I'm like, Bill, I got 10 other things to work on besides this affordable housing. So can you please lay off now? But no, for real. I mean, he's
Well, he's very typical of the county executive's choices. There's a lot. He's got a lot of. It appears that this administration has a lot of very intense monomaniacs on very different topics.
Absolutely.
I've interviewed a couple of them in this podcast.
I mean, in all sincerity, like having we couldn't do this without
Right.
without Bill. He is a visionary, and he's a hard worker, and we're going to get this done, and largely due to his efforts. So I want to make sure that I give him his props.
Well, look, before we have too much of a mutual admiration society, let's focus a little bit also on the folks this is going to serve. Bill, you touched on it a little bit. Talk a little bit about the profile of folks who are going to be able to qualify for within this 30%, because it's graded. Some of it is much lower income, some of it is more moderate, closer to what you might describe as almost workforce level. Talk about those folks. Like, well, if I'm someone listening to this and thinking, wow, getting in the ground next year, maybe down the line I could get it. Who are the folks who would qualify in the affordable component for this construction we're going to have the county is going to be doing?
Yeah, and it's important to note that basically the way affordable housing is conceived of legally in the state of New Jersey and also via federal government is pegged to the AMI or area median income. So not the median, not the average, and that is an important thing to remember. So we're talking about 10% of the units will be workforce housing, where people can be making, or families can be making, the area median income or even more than it, okay, and still qualify for this rent restricted and income capped housing.
So you could be a couple who are young teachers starting out or something like that.
Or even more,
Right.
Even teachers that are on the cause
Yeah, but one thing is
going up,
right.
but yeah, teachers and
Right.
and right now we've pegged this as like a 30% minimum,
Right.
because depending upon what other type of subsidy we can get, you never know, we can tweak it a little bit, maybe more. And then the other thing is we're going to be running the range, as far as people who are also in the very low income brackets, people that are making provider for maybe a family, couple kids even, that's making $40,000 a year or even less.
But might very well be the kind of family that would benefit greatly from turning out that the people who own, or the entity that owns their home, is a county government that could help them with things like job training,
Yeah.
chances for better opportunities for education for their children or something like that, I suppose. True?
I think that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what happens in terms of folks who are still interested in maybe having input about this? I know that there is a county web page devoted to the Affordable Housing Task Force and to affordable housing broadly. If folks are interested, can they? I guess they can navigate to that page, learn more. Do you anticipate that we've kind of completed that process of engagement because 6 meetings for 13 acres of land is a pretty good number, but is there anything more if folks, I suppose they could do it in the regulatory process, if they are interested in kind of learning and paying attention?
Maybe I think we'll hit 6, but we're going to do one more meeting.
Okay.
Well, in fact, we should talk about that today.
Yeah, great.
We don't have a date yet, but it's going to be in September, and we're going to do it at the site.
Oh, excellent.
In the media room, we're going to really.
So at County Plaza and
County Plaza,
257 Cornelison
we're going
Avenue,
to put
Jersey.
people in the vicinity on notice of this.
Right.
And yeah, we're going to let them come out, and some of the input, a lot of the plan is, I would say, well formed, but there are still things that we're playing with.
And when you say well formed, you're talking about the kind of the deeper structures and stuff like that.
Structures,
But
but
there's still things
we're
to talk
debating
about. Right, right.
Still things we're debating about. For example, what kind of non-housing public spaces will we have? We're still playing with bedroom distribution. It's a big thing we're thinking about. And speaking to the importance of having the mixed income, the other benefit of it that I forgot is taking away sometimes that people, for good reason or not, have a stigma associated with affordable housing. So
Right.
a lot of people don't want to live, in that, or certainly public housing. They're speaking about the success in Montgomery County, Maryland. They're called that, Joe and I alike, that the New York Times wrote a profile about how they're succeeding, and had a picture of like a yuppie, if you will, outside by a pool and by the building, having sipping a cocktail, and the headline said, "This is public housing, just don't call it that."
Right.
Because it looked like any other type of, new building you might see on Grove Street or the new towers on General Square, but it was, financed by the government, and it had 30% income restricted housing. So, we want everyone to be proud and happy that they're living in that, and some of that comes with stigma, some of it comes from having the money to build a good building, and some of it comes from the money to upkeep it. So yeah.
Well, I suppose the government in this case is incentivized not to build to the lowest common denominator, but to build something that is going to attract the kind of market tenants that you want to make
Exactly.
the enterprise successful. Would that be
Exactly.
fair?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why, look, Montgomery Gardens, it had some benefit
Yeah.
to a certain degree.
Yeah.
People lived there for years, but at the end of the day, it was, I think, uniformly considered a failure. Part of it was that, it was a cookie cutter, red brick geometric building with
Right.
small little windows that wasn't upkept well, that you could have, seen it in all different places, including Jersey City. And that's not the only public housing project that was demolished in Jersey City.
But I'm sure that Joe can speak to this because the county executive is always very concerned about taxpayer value. Joe, he wants we've while there has been a desire to have government action, he's tried his very best always to look. You've been very involved in things like finding the those ARA funds, for example, that were provided for the food pantry in Bayonne, I think. So to try to find ways to make sure that when we are acting, we're acting in a way that's still responsible. But I think probably Montgomery Gardens, which was never meant to be a revenue producer, the goal for taxpayers was build it as cheaply and reasonably at
Right.
cost as you could. Here, the incentive should be to build something attractive
It's a great-
and
yeah.
beautiful, because in the end, taxpayers will be better off. The more successful the market rate part of it is, the less there's ever a worry that you have a situation where you'd ever have to dip into public funds to kind of make up or something like
have
this.
to
That's what
balance it.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have to balance it. We, depending upon the structure and when it was built, it's in some of the places I've been to in Indiana, some of them are 100 years old, but even then they tried to do kind of special art. There's a lot of public art, which is something we're going to look to do here. And a lot of these places in Vienna had swimming pools, so look, we have to balance this appropriately. We want to drive it to make sure we can do it the most cost-effective way, positive, but at the same time, make sure that we have a superior product that we're all proud of and that people want to live in, and that we can draw those good rents on the 70% market.
And again, another example of where county government come in handy. You've got a terrific cultural affairs office that is very much a driver of public art already. So that
Yeah.
might be a nice resource to tap into as this
Lots
moves
to go
forward.
shopping.
Right. So I think folks have got a pretty great idea of kind of where we're going on this. Is there anything else I may not have covered that you think is worth considering? I think we've just about covered everything, but you let me know if there's anything I may not have asked you.
We're hoping to see action on this first phase, with vertical construction next year. Get done in a couple of years, few years. People can start living in these things in the not too distant future. But we're talking about 4 sites. It's going to take time for them all to evolve. And you go to the website to learn more about it. You'll hear about this public meeting coming up. Hope we'll have a robust turnout, and you'll be managing the Instagram feed to get people virtually as well. And
Yeah, we'll have a lot.
appreciate
We
your
will,
help in
no,
getting the word out.
we will have, yep, we will have a, just so folks know, we will have a lot we have had in the past, but we will for this event have another Instagram live that will cover it. So if you can't be there in person, we'll have the date soon for the September meeting. And when it is ongoing, if you're not there, you can watch online. So that'll be terrific. All right. Well, this all sounds pretty darn exciting. So let's hope it all works out. It looks pretty great. So thank you both very much for joining us. You can learn more about Hudson County's affordable housing initiative on its webpage, www.hcnj.us/affordable housing. To keep up to date on county government news and alerts, be sure to follow us on Twitter X at Hudco Tweet and on Facebook at Hudco FB. To see photos and videos of county government events, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Hudco Insta or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Hudco TV. You can find Hudco Radio and hopefully subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks as always to Hudson County Executive Craig Guy and the Board of County Commissioners, who sponsor, support, and direct all the programs and services discussed on this podcast. Take care.